Right, so we're going to start off then with level 1, lesson 1. Good place to start. So this is from, hang on, let's get the book up on the screen. So this is the book, basically I've written 3 books, which are kind of linked to the Rockschool exams. So level 1 is for grade 1, level 2, grade 2, and so on. So let's just scroll down into, let's do it there, it'd be quicker. So the first page is just a little bit about kind of warming up, hitting the drum. Just a reminder for everybody, whether you're new to this or whether you're my pupils, make sure we're getting the grip right. Let's just get that screen back up again. So a good just reminder on the grip, right? So you want to be holding the stick about a third of the way up there, point where it's nicely balanced. You're going to hold it with your thumb and first finger, and it wants to move between the thumb and first finger. Okay, so it can waggle around like that. These 3 fingers, they're just going to curl around like that. So we're not squeezing it really tight. The stick wants to be loose. As you do that, hopefully you can kind of see it moving in my hand. Those fingers eventually, once we get into faster playing, we would use to move the stick. But for now, keep it fairly loose. As we hit the drum, what we want to avoid is that. Okay, so we're making sure we're not getting a finger on top of the stick. Because as soon as you do that, it stops the stick rebounding up there. Let me just change my headphones over so I can hear what I'm doing. That's better. Yeah, because so we don't want to leave the stick on the drum, particularly if you're playing on an acoustic drum, because that's going to affect the sound. It's going to sound horrible. Going to end up hurting that finger as well. So as we hit the drum, we want to let the stick bounce up like that. So we're not slamming it into the drum like that. So a nice clean bounce. So we're avoiding kind of any of that buzzy nonsense. And as you play, you want to play from your wrist, okay, like this. Okay, so we're not kind of doing elbows and we're not doing shoulders like that. Okay, so that way we can get nice and fast playing with our wrists. Okay, so just something to bear in mind, because it's kind of tempting to hold it sort of like that, or hold it right at the end, or too far up in the middle or whatever. So just, yeah, you want like a few centimeters poking out the back of your hand like that. That way the stick's going to be nice and balanced. It's not going to feel too heavy, it's not going to feel too light, and you're going to get the best response from it. Okay, so that's a little bit on holding the stick, so just be aware of that. So let's just scroll down. So that's kind of explained all on that first page there, but we're going to just sort of skip down to playing some notes and looking at some notes and practicing these with a single stroke roll. Now, I know a lot of you who are, certainly my students who are watching this, who've been learning with me for quite some time, are going to be thinking, yes, I know what quarter notes, etc. are. Although, having said that, it does amaze me how many people aren't fully aware of the notes. So, you know, it might be worthwhile just looking over this again, just to be sure, 100% sure you know which notes are which or what. Obviously, if you're doing grade 7 or 8 with me, I'm assuming that you know what a quarter note is. But anyway, so if we're looking down here on the screen, so we have here, this thing here is called a bar, also known as a measure. 2 lines here. This is telling us that we're reading drum music and not piano music or guitar music or anything else. The 2/4 is our time signature. We'll get more into that later on. All you need to know for now is the top number is telling us that we've got 4 beats in the bar. Okay, so basically here we have our bar. We break it up into 4 equal sections, which are called beats. And then we can put notes on those beats, and we can have different numbers of notes on different beats depending on how big we make those notes or how long we make those notes. So if we look at this note here, notes tell us 2 things. They tell us basically how many times to hit the drum on that beat, and they also tell us which drum to play. So the bit that tells us which drum to play is the black circle bit there, which is called the note head, and that can be positioned on any of these lines and spaces, and each one is going to relate to a different part of the drum kit. So when it's here on the second space down, that is going to tell us that we need to be playing the snare drum, this one here, the rattly one. And then there's different length sticks that come off it. You'll see in a second different bits of those. They tell us the length of the note. So when it's like this with a note head coloured in black like that, with one stem coming off it, that is called a quarter note, which is called a quarter note because it lasts 1/4 of the bar. Okay, so each note basically fills up the whole beat. So that note is filling up all of beat 1, that's filling up all of beat 2, and so on. So if I turn my metronome on, might be a little bit quiet. Hopefully you can hear that okay. So that's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, the higher beep is beat 1. So for playing these, all we would do is 1 hit on each beat of the metronome. So it would just be 1, 2, 3, 4 would go like this. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. Okay, straightforward enough. Okay, so quarter notes, 1 hit on each beat is the easiest way of remembering it. If we go down to eighth notes, so if we look on quarter notes, we can have 4 of those in our bar. If we scroll down, now if we now look at eighth notes, you can see they look different, right? We've got 2 groups of 4. So we've actually got now 8 notes in the bar. If I just go a bit further down to the end of the book, like I say, I will put a link to this for you to download this if you've not already got a copy. There is a reference section at the end, and let's just have a look at my little... There's a bit there about holding the sticks, which is quite useful, and a bit of other stuff if I can find a bit I want. There's a metronome. Just the different note shapes, which I've probably gone too far now. There we go. A bit about counting. So some quite useful stuff in here. So here, if we look at this bit, we have eighth notes. So if we have a single eighth note on its own, it's a different shape to the quarter note. Quarter note is like that. It has the note head and 1 stem coming off it. The eighth note has the stem coming off it and a tail. If we had a single 16th note, which we're going to see in a second, that would have 2 tails coming off it if it was on its own. What we do, though, with eighth notes is when we get 2 together on a beat, they would be joined together with a line like this called beaming them together. Okay, and they can be joined together in groups of 2 or groups of 4, which is what we've got up here. There we go. Let's get it back. Okay, so you can see we join these together. So our sort of quarter note position on our beats is here, 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 and here. Okay, so beat 1. Sorry, go from that way. Beat 1, beat 2, beat 3, beat 4. So an 1/8 note lasts half as long as a quarter note. Simple maths. Okay, you split a quarter in half, you get 2/8. So what we can now do is we can fit 2 notes on each beat. So we can have 2 hits. So instead of those single hits around the quarters, the 1, 2, 3, 4, we can have 1 and 2 and. So that's the way we count it. So this second note here with the plus sign is our and. Okay, these are also known as quavers. If you do any other instruments and you have the traditional names, crotchets, quavers, and semiquavers, and so on. But for drumming, we tend to use the American names, which is fractions. So this plus sign here we count as and. So if I put my metronome back on now, what will happen is we will get 2 hits on each beat. So it'll be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay. Now my metronome is really quiet in my headphones, so I apologise if I go out of time. So it would play like this: 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, and we're playing these just with what is called a single stroke roll. Okay, so that is eighth notes. So if I go from, am I going to get it all on the screen? Yeah, I'll scroll it in, zoom it in, I should say, that way. So if I play, so you can sort of hear the difference. I'm getting weird stuff going off here. If I go from the quarter notes to the eighth notes, you can hear the difference. We've basically got 4 hits in each bar for quarter notes, 8 hits in each bar for eighth notes. So we'll go quarters, 2, 3, eighths, quarters, eighths. Okay, you do get whole notes and half notes as well, but very, very rarely on the drums. So I tend not to kind of look at those too much. And then the other most common kind of note that we have is a 16th note. So these are joined together with 2 lines, okay, beamed together. And if you have a single one on its own, it would have like 2 little tails coming off it. So our quarter note position would be here on the 1, 2, 3, 4. Our eighth note position is still here on the and, still written with a plus sign. So we've got the 1 and 2 and. And then what we've done is we've fitted another note either side of those. So we have this one, which is between the 1 and the and, which is called E, and then the last one is called So the way we count 16th notes is 1 E ander, 2 E ander, 3 E ander, 4 E ander. So 16th notes are 4 hits on each beat. 4 times 4 gives us our 16 notes in the bar. Slightly strange way of counting it: 1 E ander, 2 E ander, 3 E ander, and so on, but it kind of rolls off the tongue quite easily. when we're playing it. So obviously these are going to be twice as fast because we're now going from, twice as fast I should say, as eighth notes, 4 times as fast as quarter notes because we're getting 16 hits in the bar. So it would sound like this. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and okay, so that's how we play 16th notes. Particularly when we get to 16th. Sorry, let's turn that off. The counting is really, really important. Particularly if you've got to play just like one bar of 16th notes, all on one drum. So the counting of that is really, really important. So you know you're doing the correct number of hits. So let's go. I'll go this time from quarters to eighths to 16ths. Okay, so quarters. Eighths, 16ths, back to quarters, eighths, 16ths. Okay, so that in itself is a good little exercise to practice, just instantly switching between the two. And you don't always have to go through in order like that. You could jump from quarters to 16ths, from eighths back to quarters, from eighths to 16ths, back to eighths to quarters, and so on. Whichever, you can kind of use your imagination on that one. So they're the three main notes that we get on the drums. And again, this is all explained in the book. You can read through all this as well. And then what we've got is a couple of exercises that you can have a practice of. The first one is just quarter notes and eighth notes. And I've put the counting underneath on these. Try not to look, when you're playing it, try not to look too much just at the counting. You want to look at the notes. If possible, you can kind of like blank those out, print it off, and kind of put a bit of paper over those so you're not looking too much at the counting all the time. But I'll give this a play through so you can kind of keep going over this bit of the video if necessary and practice along with me. Okay, I'm going to again do it with the metronome, still leaving it fairly slow at 70 beats per minute. 60, 70 beats per minute is a good speed to start at, and then you can gradually start to build your speed up. Once you feel comfortable at that speed, then usually go up in fives, so like 75, then 80, 85, and so on. Okay, so we'll give this exercise 4 a play through, and you can have a play along. So I'll count in so you know when I'm going to start. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so basically you're hitting the drum either once, or sorry, I should say 1 time or 2 times on each beat, depending on whether you've got quarter notes or eighth notes. A few bits to watch out for when we're going from this line to this line. Watch out for that bit. So we've got like eighth notes on beat 4 and eighth notes on beat 1, so you get that 4 round one hand. It's going to carry on through. Make sure we're doing it with both hands as well. The temptation is to always just play with your stronger hand. So if you're right-handed, you might want to be, do it all with your right hand, or if you're left-handed, do it all with your left. Remember, we're working on a single stroke roll here, so it's right, left, right, left, right, left as much as possible, so we're exercising both hands. And then the final bit for this video, so I'm trying to keep each video so it's not too long. We're going to bring some 16th notes in now. So we're going to have quarter notes, eighth notes, and 16th notes. So this is either going to be 1 hit on each beat for a quarter note, remember, which is the single note on its own, 2 hits on each beat for the eighth notes, if it's joined together with 1 line, and 4 if it's joined together with 2 lines for the 16ths. Here we go. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that's what that one should sound like. If you're struggling to play it at that speed and sort of play it along with me, just listen to it through a few times, kind of get your head around how you're going to play it, then just slow the metronome down. If you've got to go down to 60 beats per minute or 50, that's absolutely fine. You might want to work on 1 bar at a time, so practice that first bar, then practice that second bar, and then put those two together. Then do the same with the second line, then put the first and the second line together. If it's like getting a little bit too much, just do it all in one go. Just break it down into little chunks. So that might be bars, it might even be beats. You might just need to practice 16th notes for a little while just to get those hands flowing. Okay, so the biggest mistake people make when they're learning to play the drums is they try and go too fast too soon. Okay, it's not a race. It's not about playing a million miles an hour. It's about playing it correctly, getting nice even beats.